Hello YouTube, it's your humble narrator, Logan Albright, back again. And I, like many YouTube book reviewer people who like to read, I don't have enough room for all my books in my apartment, so I got a new bookcase to kind of store some of them, and it's what you see behind me. It's why I'm lying on the floor here. It's a long, low, narrow, or wide bookcase that holds a lot of books. And so I want to go through and show you what it looks like and all the books that I put on it. I previously had all my books on the windowsill back here and they were getting stained by the sun. No good. Had to fix it. So that's what I did. Now, before I get into it, I have a quick announcement. Last week I announced that I was doing a giveaway for my book that has just been published and is available for pre-orders. I am now selecting the winner of that tonight, and I will send you a message letting you know that you won and getting your contact information so I can mail you a copy. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, let's get on with it. Here we go! All right, some of these books you will have seen before if you watch my channel because I've reviewed many of them, but I thought I'd go through them for you anyway because everybody loves a good bookshelf tour, don't they? I think they do. So these are my nice kind of like Barnes & Noble leather-bound hardcovers. Over here I have The History of the Kings of Britain by Geoffrey of Monmouth, which I haven't read yet. I've got the Encyclopedia Britannica, Plato, philosophy, dialogues, all of that good stuff. Plato was a communist, but I got that book for free, so I kept it. It's pretty cool. The Arabian Nights, harder to read than you might imagine. You kind of think of them as like fun fairy stories, but they're actually pretty difficult to comprehend, at least in this translation by Sir Richard Burton. Not too easy. Complete Edgar Allan Poe, which is, of course, wonderful. Complete H.P. Lovecraft, which is, of course, wonderful. Complete Lewis Carroll, which, you know, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, excellent books, but everything else is a little bit dull and boring, so not my favorite thing. And then speaking of dull and boring, we have Grey's Anatomy, which I bought because it was pretty cheap, and I thought, I'm going to learn about anatomy. Won't that be cool? Yeah, that was a crazy fever dream. That book is impossible to get through, but I read a little bit of it. Gormenghast, which is one of my favorite books that people don't ever talk about. It's such a wonderful, marvelous kind of fantasy that is very bizarre and strange, and it's an excellent book. People don't read it enough. They should. The Complete William Shakespeare, English Eccentrics, and my Lord of the Rings leather-bound copy. My favorite book of all time, probably. Excellent, excellent book. Speaking of Tolkien, down here I have the Silmarillion and a bunch of the history of the Lord of the Rings text. These are collections by his son Christopher Tolkien explaining kind of the writing process of the Lord of the Rings and going through early drafts. Those are really cool if you're a huge fan, but you have to be really nerd out on them like I do, because they are otherwise pretty dull reading if you're not super into it. We got My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier, an excellent book. One of the first books I reviewed for this channel, maybe the first book, now that I think about it. We have She by H. Rider Haggard down there. You can barely see it. A couple Clive Barker books, which I've been into lately. And then over here, we got a couple more Tolkien Reader, or Unfinished Tales and the Tolkien Reader. We have Shardik by Richard Adams. We've got The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. We've got Riddle of the Sands by Erskine Childers, a few Robert Heinlein books, and the Hyperion Cantos. My organization scheme for this bookshelf was largely whatever would fit, because these are fairly short shelves here and then taller shelves up here, so whatever I could fit on them, that's what I'm doing. And then over here in this little corner, I've got my two Dickens books, Nicholas Nickleby and David Copperfield. I'd like to get more of those. They're a really nice edition, the None Such Dickens, but they are huge and very expensive, so I don't get them that often, but I'd like to get more. This is a selection of Encyclopedia Britannica entries from days gone by. It's pretty actually interesting to look at the textual history of the Encyclopedia Britannica entries. A lot of them are written by famous people, and a lot of them are kind of colorful. I haven't got that far into it yet. It's not the kind of book you sit down and read all at once, but I think it's pretty cool, and I got it for free, so it's pretty awesome. Great, nice leather-bound, heavy-duty copy there. And then I bought this book on a whim because it was in a used bookstore and it was on sale. This History of Science, of Western Science, I should say. I haven't read it yet, but it looks pretty intriguing to me. And then this one I also haven't read, Franklin Library. No, this isn't Franklin Library. I forget what this is. But this one I also... the Folio Society. That's what it is. This one I haven't read either. The Celts. I'm interested in the Celts. Very interesting stuff. And then over here, this is a book I got at the graveyard entitled Death. Kind of cool visual tour of kind of morbid things from graveyards, which is pretty neat. But I haven't got that far into that one yet either. Moving right along, let's go over here. Some of these are books I haven't read yet that I'm kind of trying to keep together so that I can remember that I haven't read them and go through them. Primitive Culture, Volume 1 and 2. Speak with Distinction, which I started but haven't finished, as you can no doubt tell by the way I stutter and stammer and mumble at these videos. I really need to read that. Wildlife of Virginia and Maryland, which is interesting because I live in Washington, D.C., which is nestled right between Virginia and Maryland, and I'd like to know more about the wildlife. This is a book I got out of a grab bag thing. An Empire Wilderness. I don't really know what that's about, but I haven't opened it yet, but I got it out of a grab bag of kind of random books. The Worm Ouroboros, which is a very, very early fantasy novel, one of the first fantasy novels, very good. And then Beowulf. Over here, we've got some classic literature, Ernest Hemingway, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Under the Volcano, we got another Heinlein book, Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Another G.K. Chesterton book, The Ball and the Cross. We have, this is a Graham Greene novel, which is The Orient Express, not The Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, which I also have, but the Graham Greene version, which is a completely different story and a lot less exciting, if you ask me. A couple of Stanislaw Lem, the Polish sci-fi writer, the Siberiad, and the Futurological Congress. And then 3 Men in a Boat to Say Nothing of the Dog by Jerome K. Jerome, which is a hilarious, hilarious book. You really should read it. It's so funny. And American Psycho, which I increasingly find genius the distance I get from it and the more I think about it. What a great book. Down here, I kind of have a lot of the big sagas and epic literature that sounds a lot more fun to read than it actually is. But I have read some of it. Gargantua and Pantagruel by Francois Rabelais. Very bawdy, scatological kind of medieval French humor. It's where we get the term gargantuan from. The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser, pretty much unreadable as far as I'm concerned, but I intend to tackle it at some point and finish it. The Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory. The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, which I, again, haven't gotten very far into. Some folk tales, which I also acquired in that same grab bag I talked about before. Then we have Brideshead Revisited. We have some James Joyce, Finnegan's Wake and Ulysses, and Marcel Proust's Remembrance of Things Past, which I read the entire thing of, and I have documented on this channel, but nobody watches it because I guess it's not that interesting. Much like Remembrance of Things Past itself. Over here we have a Victor Hugo novel, my favorite Victor Hugo novel perhaps, or one of them, The Toilers of the Sea, in French, when I was making an ill-fated attempt to learn how to speak and read French. I got a little bit into it, but I've read it in English and it's amazing, but I have tried to read it in French and was not successful. Speaking of French, Three Musketeers, great French novel. We have Wilkie Collins, The Lady in White, which is really, really good. The Woman in White, I should say. Great book. And then Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier again. Love Daphne du Maurier. What a great writer. So cool. Over here we got some poetry anthologies, just a couple of poetry things. We have Songs of Innocence and Experience by William Blake, who I love. We have Yeats's poetry collection, and we have Dubliners by James Joyce. Over here I have this collection of Victor Hugo books, kind of a box set, which I don't have the entirety of, but they're kind of nice old, I think very early 20th century, maybe late 19th century editions. Kind of nice. Biography of Mozart from the Folio Society again. A concise history of the common law, which is not super concise, I'm sure you can see there. And then this book on shamans, which I haven't read. Pretty cool. Up here I've got some philosophy books, which I talked about in the book haul video. We've got Proudhon, we've got Derrida, we've got some Kant. I'm trying really hard to read The Critique of Pure Reason. It's impossible to read, but I'm making steady progress through it. A couple of Steven Pinker books who I really like, Better Angels of Our Nature and Enlightenment Now, kind of shedding light on the fact that if you go by the statistics, things are getting better and not worse, despite what everybody thinks. This is the collection of Atlas Obscura, which is a website that documents interesting places to go around the world, and I love it, so that's a kind of cool book form of that. Bret Easton Ellis, White, which is a really interesting kind of nonfiction essay book that is, I was going to do a review on it and then I never did, but it's a pretty cool book. I like Bret Easton Ellis. He's the one who wrote American Psycho. The Starless Sea by Aaron Morgenstern, which I increasingly dislike the more distance I get from it. Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which I thought I was going to like, but then didn't. I did an unpopular opinion review on that for the channel. We have The Serpent and the Rainbow. I don't know too much about this. It's another one from that grab bag. Haven't read it yet. We have Bullfinch's Mythology in a nice leather edition. The Dark Verse 4-volume set hardcovers. These are kind of creepy Lovecraftian tales. I did a review of the first volume for this channel, and I've read the first 2. I haven't read the final 2 yet. I bought them as a box set because I thought they looked cool, and I thought, you get a deal if you buy all 4. I might as well buy all 4. Kind of disappointing, but what are you going to do, right? The second volume is a lot better than the first volume. I may go and do an additional review of just the second volume, or maybe the third or the fourth when I get to them, to amend for my kind of ripping apart of the first one. Ghost story anthology, and then this book on plants and how to recognize wildlife around, which is pretty cool. Is that everything? I think it is. Okay, so that's my new bookcase. It's really nice that it's under the windows and is pretty unobtrusive. It doesn't take up a lot of room in the apartment, but I'm really happy to have a place to put more books because I'm always acquiring new ones, and I got another book haul video to do for you guys pretty soon, so maybe I'll do that. But until then, stay crazy, and I'll catch you next time with another book review for your viewing pleasure. I've been Logan Albright. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.